Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather, 12th day of March 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Let's see, first up, hazardous weather graphic. We've got blizzard warnings out for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, including Nunivak Island, as well as St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait Coast, Northern Seward Peninsula, and the Northwest Coast, Kivalina, Red Dog Dock, on up to Point Hope. And that's, let's see, for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta and Nunivak Island, that blizzard warning is out until, or it starts from from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. Saturday. So 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, so Saturday until 9 p.m. Saturday evening for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. And that's for winds gusting 50 to 60 miles an hour and blowing snow. Visibility is down to less than a mile. And it's mostly along the coastal areas. We'll see the worst conditions. Inland will be better too, considerably better. And high wind warning for Thompson Pass there, northeast of Valdez. And that's out 3 a.m. tonight until noon Saturday for possible gusts 70 miles an hour out of the northeast. And for the Bering Strait Coast, that blizzard warning, St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait Coast, and also the Northern Seward Peninsula. That's out until 10 a.m. It's currently out now and will stay out until 10 a.m. Sunday. And for the Northwest Coast, that's out until 4 p.m. Sunday for that blizzard warning. Otherwise, winter weather advisory in for Kotzebue Sound into the Saddlewick Valley area, and also Nome over toward Golovin. Winter weather advisories there. For conditions not quite as bad, still blowing snow, gusty winds 40 to 50 miles an hour, reducing visibilities to a half mile or less at times there. And also for the western Arctic coast, winter weather advisory from midnight tonight until midnight Saturday. And that's for snow and blowing snow, gusty winds 45 miles an hour, higher gusts, especially down toward Cape Lisburne, much higher gusts there, with visibilities reduced to a quarter mile or so in blowing snow. And then for the Panhandle down there, those winter weather advisory for the coastline there for, let's see, for tonight until noon tomorrow. And that's for 4 to 7 inches of snow in the yellow shaded areas there. And then a winter storm warning for heavy snow over the southern Panhandle, especially over toward Hyder and Stewart. But you can see it covers eastern Prince of Wales Island for the heavy snow warning there. Heaviest amounts of 11 to 14 inches. That'll be over toward Hyder and Stewart, and a little bit less there as you head west along the Panhandle. And again, that's out until 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, Saturday afternoon, and tonight. Otherwise, you can see the band of moisture down there over the southern southeast coast, bringing the snow to the area there today, currently, with the colder upper level low over the just south of Yakutat there, and another center spinning up there southeast of Kodiak that's dropping southward and clearing out. High pressure building into the interior areas with clear skies, lighter winds today, diminishing as the front there out to the west pushes into the south, into the west coast, starting to push into the west coast there. And winds getting pretty gusty, increasing this afternoon. Let's see, Pribilof Islands gusts 40, 45 miles an hour there ahead of the front, and upwards of 50 to 55 miles per hour now. Cape Romanzoff gusts 50 miles an hour, and Gamble 52 mile an hour wind gusts out of the southeast, as well as Teller and Tin City gusts 50 to 55 miles per hour. Winds also increasing there along the northwest coast, and eventually the western Arctic coast, as well as the inland areas. 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts, or 35 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts, the inland areas of the southwest interior there. But Bristol Bay, as you can see, clear skies, Kodiak Island, less wind today than what you saw yesterday, and clear skies along the Gulf of Alaska, Kenai Peninsula. Very nice conditions all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast there. And then breaking out behind that front, west of Adak, back to Shimia, just some scattered shower conditions there. And let's see, rolling that through again, you can see the main kind of drifting eastward, east-northeast, kind of a push to the northeast there of that front and storm system. High pressure slowly moving eastward, kind of backed up because of the ridge over the west coast areas, northwest United States, and then the upper level low having trouble there off the southeast coast, making any eastward progress. So that's got that fetch of moisture coming up and then over into the panhandle there, overrunning the colder Arctic air, and looks like, again, anywhere, up to 14 inches of snow possible there in the warning areas tonight into till tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, high pressure in the interior there, over 1,040 millibars over the central interior, really locked in there, and about 1,040 over the eastern Arctic coast. Snow and blowing snow in the increase already, St. Lawrence Island area, and the winds picking up along the southwest coast now. And the front's still back to the west, though, fair ways back to the west. And then the low there in the Gulf of Alaska at the surface. And again, that mostly snow showers, depending on your elevation time of day there in the panhandle. But it looks like snow right down to sea level now with the colder air into the area. And then for tonight, again, heavy snow warnings out for the southern panhandle, winter weather advisories elsewhere. And colder and windier, though, over the northern panhandle. Looks like pretty gusty gale force winds, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay area, out of the north to northeast, and also still some breezy outflow winds, Copper River Delta, but not too bad, and the Copper River Basin a little breezy, but nothing too strong. High pressure starting to slip eastward a little bit there, but the ridge still into the central interior, and then southward to about King Salmon. And so clouds along the west coast, snow having trouble really getting inland at this point, with the front holding back just west of the Pribilof Islands, so gale force winds there, gales for the eastern Aleutians, and 40 to 60 mile an hour winds there with blowing snow again for the Yukon Delta coast up across St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait coast, and winds on the increased western Arctic coast. See that trough there just grazing the western Arctic coast there with some light snow possibly. Just really wind will be more of a factor there for the winter weather advisory causing the blowing snow. And then for the forecast Saturday, high pressure holding, refuses to leave, but weakens a little bit there over the Yukon Flats eastern interior areas, and it keeps it dry and clear over the interior. And on the cold side, down to Kodiak Island, should be a mostly clear day with increasing clouds in the afternoon, especially on the southwest part of the island. Now precipitation trying to push inland, again having trouble making it inland with a high holding over the interior. But definitely for St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, the winds stay strong enough and more of a wind producer over the inland areas of the southwest interior to the Seward Peninsula and northwest Arctic coast, Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, and a little breezier on the Arctic coast. Panhandle, look for decreasing snow showers tomorrow afternoon as drier air finally starts to slip southward into the area. Taking a look at Sunday, still a risk of some snow showers, scattered snow showers over toward the Hyder-Stewart area, maybe Petersburg, or maybe Wrangell, but dry and colder over the remainder of the southeast coast. And now clouds, chance of moisture in along the North Gulf Coast, more clouds and better chance of some moisture for Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula. Manuscript Valley stayed dry as well as the northeast interiors. And lows Saturday morning 20 to 30 below along the Arctic coast and north slope to near 40 below over the Koyukuk Valley, near freezing for the Pribilofs, and mid-30s southern panhandle. And then Saturday afternoon staying below zero over the northeast interior.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphics Saturday morning. A fair amount of VFR, central interior of the state, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula right up to the Arctic coast. IFR, though, eastern Brooks Range, eastern North Slope, there down to about the Porcupine River. And then some IFR also over the Upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country to just south from the Eastern Alaska Range, just south of Eagle. IFR, another band there from Iliamna Lake down into Bristol Bay and the part of the Alaska Peninsula there in the Bering Sea side. Otherwise, good VFR there from Atka Island, the Pribilofs up to St. Lawrence Island, patch of IFR in the Bering Strait to the western Seward Peninsula. And marginal VFR, Norton Sound, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta for the afternoon. Band of IFR with the next front pushes into the southwest coast, St. Lawrence Island and Nunavak Island, Alaska Peninsula there, with marginal VFR in across most of Bristol Bay, reaching Sitkinak and covering the eastern Aleutians. But from Shemya to right up to Atka, all VFR, Pribilofs becoming VFR behind the system. Interior, VFR, crossed from the Arctic coast all the way down to the Gulf of Alaska, Panhandle. Northern 2/3 VFR with some marginal VFR and IFR lingering down south. And then for Sunday morning, still some marginal VFR areas of southern Panhandle, otherwise VFR. Up along the North Gulf Coast, VFR, Cook Inlet, South Central Alaska, all the way again to the Arctic Coast North Slope, VFR. But that band of IFR now pushing inland across Bristol Bay and expanding there, all of Kodiak Island into Kamishak Bay, marginal VFR into Kachemak Bay, southern Cook Inlet, southern Kuskokwim Valley, and IFR into the Bering Strait, and then the zone of IFR behind the system, VFR behind the system, eastern Bering Sea, including the Pribilofs, and all of the Aleutians from Amchitka to the Alaska Peninsula to about Nelson Lagoon, marginal for the Shimiatu area, and some possible marginal VFR over eastern border from the eastern Alaska Range up almost to the southern Brooks Range, kind of a narrow area there. And then for the afternoon, Sunday, VFR, all of the southeast coast, and a little more intrusion of lower flying conditions into Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula there. IFR, Kuskokwim Valley, northwestward to the Nulato Hills and the lower Yukon River Valley area, Selawik Valley, Kotzebue, and then breaking out the VFR in a narrow band behind that across the deltas, northeast Bristol Bay to Kodiak Island, and then more VFR behind the band of marginal VFR along the southwest coast, there over the eastern Bering St. Lawrence Island, then some more marginal VFR central Bering Sea. Otherwise, not too bad out there for the Aleutians Bering Sea through the weekend. And northern interior, eastern interior, VFR. Passes Anatuvik Natiga, another VFR day coming up tomorrow. And western Alaska Range, Lake Clark, Merrill, and Rainy, all VFR, including Windy, Isabel, and Mentasta. Good flying conditions, VFR, and mostly will be clear for Tanita. Ceilings visibility is likely unlimited, as well as for Portage, Chilkoot and White as well. Freezing levels at the surface, not quite as far north as today, but still up there to St. Matthew Island, 2,000 feet though, south of the Aleutians. And 2,000 feet, a little closer there to the southern Panhandle, but not much. And then at the surface, though, down into the southern southeast coast up to about Mount Edgecombe. And then for the icing, the system pushing in, looks like considerable moderate rime icing, pretty likely St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula, and the western Brooks Range, northwest coastal areas with isolated moderate there, extending southward into Bristol Bay, Togiak Bay, Alaska Peninsula, all the Aleutians. Icing free central eastern interior, and then some turbulence possibilities over the northern Panhandle. And now for the jet stream. Southwest flow 105 knots for the eastern Aleutians, and southerlies 80 knots there over the northern Bering Sea. And for the 9,000 foot winds, the main low center still back in the Russian Far East there, but the front, in advance of it, the strongest winds 40 to 55 knots from the south and southwest, all the way from the Alaska Peninsula there, actually in the Pacific, northward to the western Arctic coast, edging eastward slowly with the ridge, trying to hold, but slowly slipping eastward as well, but not that fast, keeping the winds light and variable over the interior. Northerlies, not too strong in the Gulf of Alaska, but northeast 40 there right across Yakutat, and then southerlies just skirting the southeastern Arctic coast there, 65 to 70 knots. And at 3,000 feet, 60 to 70 knot winds from Nunivak Island and the Yukon Delta coast right up through the Bering Strait, but west of the western Arctic coast, followed by westerlies at about 40 knots over the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians, light winds over the interior, light winds for the Panhandle. Turbulence-wise,
floating hundreds of miles from Earth, astronauts get a unique perspective of our planet. While they might recognize landmarks, space is the only place they can see the very edge of our planet's atmosphere.
From orbit, particularly looking at the horizon, did bring to mind how thin the atmosphere is. It's like an onion skin around this great big ball of the Earth.
This uppermost layer of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, also overlaps with the very beginning of space. It's the job of NASA's new mission, GOLD, the Global Scale Observations of the Limmendisk Instrument, to study this region, a region that isn't just for astronauts to explore, but that affects humans every day down on the ground. For one thing, this layer of the upper atmosphere helps protect us from harmful radiation and energy emanating from the sun. But in our modern society, it does so much more. It affects the smartphone that sits in your pocket and the radio waves that guide our airplanes. The ionosphere is a crucial layer of the atmosphere through which our communications and GPS signals travel. And when this region changes, it impacts those communication signals. Changes can occur above this region from the sun's activity, also known as space weather. Changes can also occur below from Earth's weather, such as hurricanes and wind patterns. Gold connects the dots between how space weather and Earth's weather shape the upper reaches of the atmosphere. But this region isn't easy to study. The ionosphere spans roughly 60 to 400 miles from Earth's surface, which is too high for aircraft and scientific balloons, and the lower regions are too low to easily study with satellites. What are attainable, however, are the swaths of red and green light shining out from the upper atmosphere. Formed when the sun's rays hit atmospheric molecules, this light, named airglow, comes from green and red bands of glowing gas. Some of the airglow is invisible to our eyes, shining in infrared and ultraviolet light, which can only be seen with scientific instrumentation. Taking advantage of our planet's natural glow is gold. The gold instrument, which is about the size of a mini-fridge, is hitching a ride on a commercial communication satellite, SES-14. The satellite's orbit lies 22,000 miles above Earth, where it can record images in ultraviolet light to monitor changes in airglow across the globe. These images give information on the temperature, density, and composition of particles in the upper atmosphere. Gold collects these observations faster than any mission has ever done before. It captures an image of Earth's entire disk every 30 minutes, allowing scientists to see how the upper atmosphere evolves throughout the day. Gold joins a host of missions studying the very nature of space, around Earth, the Sun, and planets. As NASA ventures farther and farther from home, knowing the nature of space itself is crucial for our journey to understand our solar system and beyond.
There's a new class of chemical compounds impacting the Earth's ozone layer and raising concerns among some scientists. But a new NASA analysis indicates stratospheric ozone could actually be impacted more by climate change and the continued release of already banned chemicals. The Earth's ozone hole is showing signs of recovery, decades after the landmark agreement called the Montreal Protocol that banned many chemical compounds harmful to the ozone layer.
So we know the Montreal Protocol was a huge success. This was signed in the late 1980s when scientists and policymakers from around the world gathered together to try to save the ozone layer.
The chemicals they regulated persist in the atmosphere for many decades. They thin the ozone layer and they create a seasonal hole over Antarctica. They basically take away part of our planet's natural sunscreen, and that increases the risk of skin cancer and damage to plants.
Scientists have projected the ozone hole could disappear almost completely by about 2075, but several factors could delay that recovery.
There are some industrial compounds that are not banned by the Montreal Protocol, but as they enter the atmosphere, they will also hurt the ozone layer.
But the unregulated compounds have a short lifespan in the atmosphere, unlike the chlorofluorocarbons that were originally regulated. So they have a short-lived impact on ozone, and we don't think they'll delay recovery by more than a few years.
We projected by 2050, more than half of the ozone-depleting compounds in the atmosphere will come from long-lived substances banned by the protocol.
Because these compounds stay in the air for such a long time, compared to the unregulated, short-lived compounds, they will have a disproportionate and lingering impact on ozone. So any non-compliance with the protocol can have significant consequences.
And the really big uncertainty in ozone layer recovery is climate change. There are many naturally produced ozone-depleting substances that are emitted by the oceans. And as the oceans continue to warm due to climate change, those emissions will increase, and that will further delay ozone recovery.
Scientists want to better understand how climate change will affect ozone recovery.
This is a hard problem. As a scientific community, we need to work on this major issue. We now have a powerful new tool to simulate atmosphere and its interaction with land and ocean to study this issue. And that's what we're going to do.
how can you see the atmosphere? The answer is blowing in the wind. Tiny particles known as aerosols are carried by the air around the globe. This visualization uses data from NASA satellites combined with our knowledge of physics and meteorology to track 3 aerosols: dust, smoke, and sea salt. Sea salt, shown here in blue, is picked up by winds passing over the ocean. As tropical storms and hurricanes form, the salt particles are concentrated into the spiraling shape we all recognize. With their movements, we can follow the formation of Hurricane Irma and see the dust from the Sahara, shown in tan, get washed out of the storm center by the rain. Advances in computing speed allow scientists to include more details of these physical processes in their simulations of how the aerosols interact with the storm systems. The increased resolution of the computer simulation is apparent in fine details like the hurricane bands spiraling counterclockwise. Computer simulations let us see how different processes fit together and evolve as a system. By using mathematical models to represent nature, we can separate the system into component parts and better understand the underlying physics of each. Today's research improves next year's weather forecasting ability. Hurricane Ophelia was very unusual. It headed northeast, pulling in Saharan dust and smoke from wildfires in Portugal, carrying both to Ireland and the UK. This aerosol interaction was very different from other storms of the season. As computing speed continues to increase, scientists will be able to bring more scientific details into the simulations, giving us a deeper understanding of our home planet.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
I'm meteorologist Peter Chan from the National Weather Service in Anchorage, and now here is the marine weather segment of our show here to end the week. Today's sea ice extends in through the central Bering, just south of St. Matthew Island and off the southwest coast. And we are seeing strong southeast to south winds out ahead of a frontal system that will be at gale to near storm force. And that's going to cause any recently formed ice to break up along the edge of the ice sheet, as well as along some of the shorelines. Be very careful. We have blizzard conditions, whiteout conditions at times that will persist into Saturday. And keep that in mind, as there will likely be some plinias that open up with the result of those stronger winds. The marine forecast on Saturday for southeast Alaska, there's a couple areas of low pressure affecting this area, and winds will be predominantly out of the north in the inner waterways, 20 knots, 4-footers around Ketchikan, but the gap winds flowing there, 45 knots with gusts to 45 knots, Juneau and Skagway, waves 6 to 9 feet. Offshore winds generally have a northerly component, winds of 25 to as high as 35 knots off of Yakutat, and waves generally running from 8 to near 10 feet. On Sunday, northerly winds continue still gusting up around 35 knots, the inner waterways from Skagway through Juneau and Petersburg with waves 3 to 4 feet. Offshore winds are going to try to turn back around to the southeast, Sitka northward at around 20 knots with waves generally running around 6 feet. And across south central Alaska, winds in the inner waterways will be northeast to north, Prince William Sound 15 knots, 3 feet. At the mouth of Cook Inlet, north winds 20 knots, waves around 7 feet. And offshore of the Kenai, we are looking at 15 to 25 knot north to northwest winds and waves around 5 to 6 feet. For Sunday, south central areas will see low pressure approaching from the southwest. And we are looking at winds turning more out of the east, Prince William Sound, 15 knots, 3-footers. But down there, off of Kodiak Island and the Kenai Peninsula, winds will be picking up from the east, southeast at 35 knots in the Gulf, with waves around 8 feet. And further west, you can see Kodiak Island winds are going to initially be out of the east around 10 knots, but then picking up from the south as low pressure moves into the region on Sunday. And waves will be running as high as 18 feet south of Sandy Point, with southerly winds at 18 knots on the Gulf side. On the Bering side, see those stronger southerly winds, Cold Bay 40 knots, 12 footers. And on Sunday, look for low pressure area moving across Kodiak Island. So winds south of that low will be out of the southwest to west, 30 to 35 knots. Waves right around 13 feet on the Gulf and Pacific side. On the Bering side, westerly winds 20 knots and waves 6 to 10 feet. The Aleutians, as that frontal system works through the eastern Aleutians into the Alaska Peninsula, still 40-knot winds from the south on Alaska there. Waves running either side, the Bering and the Pacific, between 16 and 20 feet. Elsewhere, winds generally go more westerly at around 30 knots, and waves generally running from 14 to near 20 feet. And on Sunday, look for more of a westerly winds to develop across the Aleutians at around 30 to 35 knots and waves running from 15 to 18 feet. The west coast is where the action will be with southeast to south winds upwards to 45 knots. Areas that are ice-free in the Bering will be seeing seas running around 20 feet. And watch out for the blowing snow and blizzard conditions along the west coast. On Sunday, winds come down a bit, and we are looking for southeast to south winds still across the ice areas at 25 knots, but the open waters southwest to west 20 to 25 knots, and waves running right around 13 feet. The Arctic coast winds will be southeast 20 to 25 knots with blowing snow. And along the west coast, 40 to 50 knot storm force winds from the southeast to south, causing blowing snow and blizzard conditions on Saturday. Winds will come down to the southeast, about 25 to near 40 knots, with still areas of blowing snow both along the Arctic coast as well as the west and northwest coasts. So we have that frontal system moving into western Alaska that's approaching from the west tonight. And as we go into the day on Saturday, we'll see that stronger winds and blizzard conditions moving in across the western portions of the state with a wave of low pressure developing that'll be heading up toward Kodiak Island by Sunday. That is your marine weather.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.